Hello everybody and welcome back to the space where we say that I can sleep. By the time this gets released, it'll be June 1st of 2025. Please do let me know what you guys have planned for the summer because it is officially the start of summer, I believe. June, July, and August I consider summer. And of course, as per usual, if you guys are enjoying these readings and would like for me to continue doing these readings, you can leave me likes, leave me comments, share my stuff, and follow me on all my platforms like here on YouTube and Spotify at iKenSleep, and on TikTok and Instagram at officially.iCanWin. Another way you can support me is via the Patreon at officiallyICanWin, where you can see exclusive content like early access. And not just that, you get full-length, uncut, unedited audios where you get to hear all of the mistakes and hiccups that I make. Now let us ascend once again into Heaven Official's blessings. Chapter 57, Part 2 of the Teasing Words, Befuddle Me. Hua Cheng was leaning against the shrine's door and seemed to have guessed what he was sighing about. "I've been wanting to ask," Hua Cheng said. "If Gaga doesn't feel secure living here, why not move somewhere else?" Shilian shook his head. "That's easy for you to say, Sanlang. Where would I move?" Hua Cheng smiled. "Why not move in with me?" Shilian knew that those words couldn't be as nonchalant as they sounded, but that joke the other night had somehow traumatized him, and he no longer dared respond to anything Hua Cheng said using that joking tone. He'd only acknowledge him with a brief smile and a tilt of his head. As for the prayers he'd received, they were all quite mundane requests. The old ox broke his leg and couldn't haul the plow, or the wife in the house got pregnant and couldn't help in the fields. But they were prayers nevertheless, and he had to treat all worshippers equally. So after taking a few days to rest, Shilian responded to them by heading into the village to help plow and plant the fields. Since Hua Cheng was staying with him, naturally he tagged along to play. Shilian hadn't wanted him to take up such hard manual labor, but he refused to be dissuaded. And so the two changed into coarse clothing, rolled up their sleeves and trouser legs, and entered the waters of the rice paddy fields. Bustling farmers scattered the expanse of lush green rice paddies, and among them, two silhouettes were particularly conspicuous. Hua Cheng's impressive air could hardly be hidden away so easily, even when he was dressed in Shilian's gritty clothing. Rather, the ragged outfit only seemed to accentuate his face and figure. The two of them were fair-skinned, with beautiful arms and long straight legs, and they were brilliantly eye-catching amidst a field of muddy farmers. The village girls were used to being surrounded by boors, and the sight of such a pair made their hearts race and cheeks redden. They kept sneaking glances as they planted seedlings, and soon their grafts veered so far off course that they became the targets of the day's teasing. Hua Cheng's blanched skin was a color devoid of blood, while Shilian's luminously pale skin had rosy undertones. Due to Shilian's natural physique, the more he sweated, the more his skin glowed like white jade. With the blazing sun overhead as they worked, he flushed as white as powder in no time at all. The dry heat was intolerable, and he wiped at the beads of sweat rolling down his collarbone. A sudden thought struck him. Ghosts were creatures of the shadows and disliked the sun, so Hua Cheng must be even more irritated than he was. Shilian turned his head to look. Sure enough, he saw Hua Cheng straighten up languidly as well, his eyes squinting as he used one hand to block out the sun. Though partially hidden under the shadow of his hand, his eyes were gazing in Shilian's direction. Shilian walked over and pressed his bamboo hat onto Hua Cheng's head. Here. Hua Chang seemed somewhat surprised by the action, but his eyes soon squinted into a smile. Okay. Although Hua Chang had said he was only going to work the fields for the fun of it, when he actually got down to business, he was much faster than Shilian. He was quick and proper and incredibly skilled. An hour later, Shilian finished transplanting his paddies, but he was already sore and achy. He straightened up and knocked his fist against his lower back for some relief. And Hua Chang instantly came over to help him out. Shilian took a look at Hua Chang's section, and he was shocked to see that he'd quietly finished a large patch of field all by himself in only an hour. Each green rice stalk stood neat and orderly in the watery paddies, and it was a sight most pleasing to the eye. Sanlang, you really do learn fast, Shilian marveled earnestly. You don't need to help me. Go sit and rest, and drink some water or something. As Shilian wished, Hua Chang went to the rice ridges to retrieve water. The village chief had been watching from the sidelines for some time, and he gave a thumbs up. Dao Zhang, which house does that lad belong to? He's so diligent, so amazing. Just one of him is as good as 10 men. If any girl catches his eye, it'll be her good fortune. Shilian snorted a laugh, but it wasn't long before a few others crept over to inquire as well. Hey, Dao Zhang, where does the lad staying at your shrine hail from? Is he married yet? He hasn't got a wife at home, right? Surely not. He's so young. Shilian didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and answered vaguely. I guess not. He's young, so it's not time to consider anything yet. Well, that's not right, the villagers countered. It's precisely because he's young that the matter has to be settled quickly. Dao Zhang, you gotta talk to him. Men gotta get settled early before they can mature. Gotta start a family before anything else. That's right. Young people got those raging hormones and all. They can't endure too many lonely nights. All these villagers were from households with daughters and were clearly there to dig for information. Just as Shilian courteously turned them away, Hua Chang strolled over with a bamboo water bottle dangling from his hand. I'm married. There's a wife at home. When the villagers heard this, they were greatly disappointed, but still unrelenting. Whose daughter is it? Won't you tell us, little fella? You're not lying to us, are you? She must be virtuous and beautiful. Hua Chang raised his brows. That's right. Virtuous and beautiful. A real noble. Gracious, special someone who I've liked ever since I was young. I had a crush for many years and pursued it non-stop until I managed to win my special someone over. He spoke with such a straight face, without a hint of falsehood, that the villagers felt they had no chance. They could only disperse, their disappointment apparent. Shilian was lost in thought at his words when Hua Chang handed him a cloth and water bottle. Water? Shilian took the cloth and wiped his muddy hands before drinking a few swallows from the water bottle. Then he passed the bottle back over. Without realizing it, he had bunched the cloth in his hands into a messy ball, and he patted himself with it here and there. He tried to hold in the question for a while, but in the end he still couldn't help but ask. Is it true? Hua Chang took the bamboo bottle back and drank from it himself, his Adam's apple rolling up and down once with the motion of his throat. Is what true? He asked, lowering his head. Shilian wiped a bit of sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. He wondered if the sun was a little too bright today, because his forehead and cheeks were burning up. He smiled and tried his best to sound casual. That there is a wife at home, virtuous and beautiful, a real noble, gracious, special someone. You had a crush since you were young and pursued it non-stop until you won that person over. Oh, Hua Cheng said. That's a lie. Shilian let out a sigh of relief, though he didn't notice. This time, his smile was genuine, and he copied Hua Cheng's tone from before. You liar. Hua Cheng grinned and added, but it wasn't all a lie. I just haven't won that person over yet. Shilian was dumbstruck by this, but Hua Cheng had already turned around to continue laboring in the fields. Shilian stood where he was in a daze for a bit before eventually bending down and getting back to work. For some reason, he felt a little unhappy. Soon after, he discovered that a row of his grasps was off course, and he quickly pulled his mind back to earth. As he worked the fields, he tried connecting with the Windmaster through the private communication array. Although Hua Cheng had warned him about getting close to the Windmaster and his coterie, Shilian couldn't help it. He'd made multiple attempts over the past few days, but not once did he succeed. He recited the password over and over and was met with nothing but silence on the other side. Thus, he changed tactics and reached out to Ling Wen instead. Ling Wen, how is Lord Windmaster doing? Ling Wen connected promptly, and her voice sounded next to Shilian's ear. Lord Windmaster, I think he's a little better. Shilian's instincts told him she wasn't telling the truth, but he didn't push. However, it did help him make up his mind to go up fairly soon to investigate. By the way, Lord Watermaster sent a gift to you, and it has already arrived, Ling Wen added. Please remember to take a look, Your Highness. Shilian was perplexed. A gift? That isn't necessary. I haven't done anything deserving of a reward. There's no need to be modest, Ling Wen said. When Lord Windmaster gets impulsive, he drags anyone nearby along with him. You went through so much trouble for so long while in his company. In any manner of speaking, there is no shame in accepting the gift. Lord Watermaster said it was nothing but a small show of gratitude, so just take it. Shilian still didn't think it appropriate and kept it tucked at the back of his mind. Once work was done and they cleaned up, Hua Cheng went over to the village chief's house to help repair his plow, and Shilian returned to Puchi's shrine. After moving the three good-for-nothings, as Hua Cheng had called them, behind the shrine, Shilian searched all over his small abode. Where's the gift? He wondered. Thinking it might have fallen in the cracks behind the donation box, he rolled up his sleeves to lift and move the box aside. It unexpectedly refused when he tried. It was excessively heavy, like it had grown roots into the ground. Perplexed, Shilian dug out the key and opened the box. The moment he did, he was nearly blinded by bright golden light. The donation box was packed to bursting with gold bars. Even with just a cursory glance, there were clearly enough to exchange for 1,000,000 merits minimum. Shilian instantly threw the cover shut, pressing it down with both hands. Nothing but a small show of gratitude? To give such a hefty gift for no reason. Was this a bribe to keep his mouth shut? He had initially thought that if it really was just a small gift, such as a jade pendant that contained a supply of spiritual power, then it might be best to accept it. After all, returning a gift might injure the Watermaster's face. The Watermaster was proud, so it wouldn't be a nice thing to do. But now? Well, alright. As expected from the god of wealth, a chest this big filled to the brim with gold bars, now he had to return it. It just so happened he'd already been planning on making a trip to the heavens to check on the Windmaster. He figured Hua Cheng wouldn't be back soon enough to let him know in person, so he left a note, then hoisted the oppressively heavy donation box onto his back before taking off. Unexpectedly, there was mayhem in the heavenly capital when he arrived. Shi Lian stood there, bug-eyed and gaping at the destruction around him. The once perfectly tidy Grand Avenue of Divine Might was completely wrecked. Potholes, cracks, and craters marred the street. A team of junior heavenly officials was running around in circles attending to this and that, while Ling Wen was squatting next to a deep crater massaging her throbbing temples. Shi Lian approached her. "Shenjun, what happened?" Ling Wen looked up and was flummoxed by the giant donation box on his back. "Your Highness, what are you doing carrying such a big donation box up here? As for what happened, don't even ask." Ling Wen sighed. "General Nanyang and General Shen Zhen got into a fight and destroyed each other's palaces." "Feng Xin and Mu Qing?" Shi Lian was amazed. "Why were the two of them fighting again?" "What could it be but that business with the fetus spirit?" Ling Wen explained. "A few martial gods met up to debate how to deal with the ghost mother and son. General Nanyang suggested bringing the fetus spirit to the refinery to dissolve it, since it did murder many people. But Shen Zhen wouldn't let him. His tone wasn't the nicest, as you'd expect, so Nanyang said, 'As if you ever been so benevolent. Maybe you have a guilty conscience.' And other such things. Your Highness, you know how it is. They didn't say much before they went off with their fists, just like that. Look around. Look at the state of this place. You martial gods really don't have a good culture. This year's repair expenses are terrifying. I only ran the numbers halfway, and now I've forgotten everything again. Honestly." She really did look like she had quite the headache. "Then I'll leave you to it," Shi Lian said. "I'll go check up on Lord Windmaster." Ling Wen looked up. "Visit Lord Windmaster? Don't bother, Your Highness. Lord Windmaster isn't seeing visitors right now." "Didn't you say he was a bit better?" Shi Lian asked. "That's what Lord Watermaster said," Ling Wen replied. "But Lord Windmaster not seeing visitors was also a statement from Lord Watermaster. Not even I can see Lord Windmaster right now, so he probably needs more time to recuperate. You'd best not go, Your Highness. Speaking of, isn't your donation box too—" And just like that, Shi Lian dropped the donation box to the ground. "Then will you please help me return this to Lord Watermaster? I haven't done anything deserving of such a reward, and even if he didn't give me anything, I would never say anything that shouldn't be said." He felt relieved after throwing the box down and left with haste. Ling Wen called after him, but upon receiving no response, she let it go and continued to stare at the deep crater with a throbbing head. Although Shi Lian did leave, of course he wouldn't descend to the mortal realm so easily. Instead, he snuck over to the esteemed palace of the Wind and Water Masters in the heavenly capital. The palace was swarming with guards both inside and out, but a small thing like that couldn't stop Shi Lian. Shi Qingxuan had brought him here in the past, so he had a general idea of where the Windmaster's bedchambers were located. He flipped over the wall and alternated between stealthily running across rooftops and slinking around the grounds, until he arrived at his destination. It took him no time at all. His only concern was the possibility that the Windmaster had been moved elsewhere by his brother and wasn't in the building at all. Fortunately, this wasn't the case. He climbed onto the roof and found a blind spot where no one could see him. Then he hooked his legs onto the eaves and flipped himself upside down to peek into the bedchamber. What he saw shocked him. Shi Qingxuan was tightly trussed up, tied to his own bed with ropes that bound his hands and legs. Even so, he still struggled non-stop. Meanwhile, Shi Wudu was pacing back and forth next to his bed with a bowl full of an unknown black substance in his hands. He paused for a moment before suddenly walking over to the head of the bed. And then, he forced the bowl's contents down Shi Qingxuan's throat.